Hi, and welcome to this special bonus episode of the Dramatic Dream Dragons podcast here on the 5 Star Network. We are, as always, a podcast all about Dragon Gate and DDT, and I am your host, Sondre Björn. And with me today, I have Dylan for this bonus Dragon Gate guide we're doing before Kobe World. How are you, Dylan?
I'm excited. Kobe World's right around the corner. The biggest show of the year. DG, the company that we all love so much. Hopefully you love it. And maybe if you don't even, maybe you're new listening to this. That's what this show's for, right? To get new fans
Yeah.
interested in DG. Maybe not trying to sell them, but more so give information that may make your experience that much more fruitful when you watch it. Because Dragon Gate is a promotion that the more you know, the more you gain, so to speak, from watching the shows.
Yeah. So this, of course, will be a beginner's guide, kind of for Dragon Gate. We'll section it into different parts, and me and Yannik will be doing it the same for DDT later this month. So you will have two guides for the main promotions we cover here on Dramatic Dream Dragons, and with Kobe World on the horizon, which is their biggest show, it just feels right to do it. So let's get started with some brief backstory on what Dragon Gate is. So back in 1999, Ultimo Dragon came back to Japan from Mexico, and he wanted to bring the faster lucha style of Mexico into Japan. So he created Torimon Japan. He had already created Torimon in Mexico, and this was the Japan offshoot of that. And it became sort of like a mix between a lucha and a pure promotion. And that ran until 2004 when Ultimo Dragon left Japan to sign with WWE. And that led them to remake Torimon Japan into Dragon Gate. And then it was Dragon Gate, and it was led by Shima, who was Torimon Japan's ace before when Ultimo left, or like he was their biggest star, so he kind of led Dragon Gate into becoming Dragon Gate, which brought on the titles and all that. And up until 2018, Dragon Gate was under the Shima reign, kind of. That is how I would explain it. That's the Shima years of
The
him being the booker.
the thing is, so the start of the promotion. There's so much we can get into
Yeah,
with all of this whole era. You have to understand too. Things got really weird at this time because it wasn't just like there's a lot of stories within stories when it comes to Toryumon into Dragon Gate because there was a bunch of different stuff going on at the time. They had you mentioned Toryumon Japan. They had Toryumon 2000s project T2P. A lot of
yeah,
people would know it. Toryumon X, which was like a really a failed offshoot pretty much going in. But there was all these. If you go back into the history of Japanese pro wrestling, there's so many offshoots of this Toryumon system that happened.
yeah,
If anybody listens to my other show, Eastern Lariat, the co-host on there, my co-host friend Striga, his favorite promotion of all time is called El Dorado, which was another like one again. There were many spin-offs on there, but basically, like you said, basically all of these guys followed Ultimo Dragon's influence when it came to his style of wrestling, and
yeah,
obviously a lot of that influence also was from Michinoku Pro,
yeah,
which was basically DG before DG in the '90s. Colorful mass characters, heavy inspiration from Lucha Libre in Mexico, which is obviously where Ultimo trained, and a lot of these guys also trained as well. If you go back to even some of these guys actually were able, Ultimo got some of these guys onto WCW at the very end. Somebody like you could look up and see Magnum Tokyo, who was like a huge player around that time. Shima was on WCW Nitro at the time, or maybe it was Saturday Night, but he was definitely on there. You could see stuff like that going in there. So I won't get super into it, but there's a ton of information you can find
yeah,
out there. That's not the company itself always references its history in so many ways, but this stuff was really kind of like setting a table for where we would get to it in the future.
Yeah, and of course that would last until 2018 when Shima left and took a bunch of talent with him to OWE, basically all of Strong Hearts. When that in turn would lead to Glee. That is a whole other story. But 2018, Shima left, the Shima split happened, and the year after, Ultimo Dragon was back in the company after being gone for 15 years in 2019. And I don't know if those two things are related. I think they are, but it's we don't need to get into that. But either way, Ultimo Dragon came back, and since he came back, we have also seen a lot of switch in Dragon Gate. And it first of all, it got renamed kind of, but it got a different kind of style of look. They made the logo now and the name say Dragon Gate in one word, Pro Wrestling, not Dragon Gate is in two words. That is important. That is why I always write Dragon Gate in one word, because I talk about Dragon Gate in that way. And I know a lot of people still have like the space in between them, and that's not a big deal. But I just needed to mention that if you want to spell it correctly, it is Dragon Gate one word nowadays.
Nope, I mean you're completely right. They tried to change their image, and
yeah,
we may talk about it a little bit, but the whole company kind of changed its image, not just in that, like the
yeah.
one word way, but
We got new
changed
titles, new logos, everything, and
the style of the promotion changed.
yeah,
Like the wrestling style is a lot different now than it was 10 years ago. If you look at the DG roster now, there's people on there, and like I said, we'll get to it more specifically later. There's people on here that would have never have been around 10 years ago with all of that. And obviously, Shima leaving was heavily influential. And you can see that even in Gleet right now. He has a lot of influence there.
yeah,
Again, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. Going back to that era I was talking about earlier, Shima and Magnum Tokyo were like really heated rivals at times. There was people that left. Shuji Kondo came and went. Taru left.
yeah,
There was a lot going on there, and like a lot of people came and went, and they always try. Even if you're a New Japan fan, you may have heard this concept before as well. Like Nagata, Kojima, Nakanishi, Tenzan, the third generation.
yeah,
They also had that in Dragon Gate. It's not that super referenced these days, but you'll see people like Dragon Kid, Shima, those guys would be like first generation guys, and then you had the second generation, which was like
Yamato, BB Hulk.
no, that
Oh,
would be
okay.
third.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, you're
yeah,
talking about Tournament
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah. It would be people that came in after, which would be like Susumu, Horiguchi, Kanda, like those guys. And then later on, you get to your Shingos.
Yeah.
Even before that, there's others. I mean, because Yoshino and Doi were probably more the generation after that. So there's multiple generations, more or less, with Dragon Gate, where training classes came in. A lot of them are lumped together. You'll see that a lot, and they play off of each other. But yeah, when Shima left, a lot changed, like from up and down, pretty much from where you were at.
And also in I think it was 2018, or maybe the year before in 2017, but they brought in a streaming service where they streamed all their shows from going forward. And that was DragonGate.live, the Dragon Gate Network. It is a subscription service that renews every month on the 1st. It costs $11 per month, I think, and 1,650 yen. So, kind of like it changes.
Fluctuates.
It fluctuates. Yeah. But there you can watch Dragon Gate's live shows and a bunch of like archived shows and matches, including Tournament Japan shows and matches, which I really like about the service, because Tournament Japan shows are really hard to get by, and they have them on the Dragon Gate Network, and it helps a lot to find them then. The problem with the service, like it's a problem only for if you want to watch the current shows, is that when they get streamed live, they get taken down a couple of weeks after they air, and then get re-uploaded in a shorter format later on in the year as part of the Infinity series, which is like their little series where they have shows from all of the years that have streamed.
Yeah, they used to have a show on Japanese TV called Infinity. I mean, they don't do that anymore. They haven't done it pretty much since this network started, more or less. The thing with the network is, I will warn you, like what he said is totally true. If you are a new fan, that's something you have to come in with your, make sure to keep that in mind. Is that they delete shows, but because that's a TV rights deal as well.
Yeah.
Like they'll put them up. They'll put them up eventually after it airs on TV, but sometimes it takes a little while, and the promotion is a little bit more expensive than the other streaming services as well.
Yeah, and that is because it's run by Gaora. Dragon Gate themselves doesn't have that much control over the Dragon Gate network. It is run by their TV company.
And again, that's a very common thing in Japanese pro wrestling. It's not like this is the only one. I mean, even New Japan.
TV Asahi runs New Japan World, so...
Yeah, exactly. So, it's not like this is some crazy thing that only DG has. It's just theirs is run like a little bit worse than some of the other ones, is all.
But still, though, they are very friendly to new viewers when to sign up for the service. It's not like you need to have like a translator to translate every word on the website. They have an English translated version of the website, and every first match of each live stream show on the Dragon Gate network are also streamed on the Dragon Gate network's YouTube channel, where they stay forever free, and the VOD stay free forever. So you can watch the opener from like almost any live Dragon Gate show whenever you want, just by finding the Dragon Gate Network's YouTube channel, which you find by just searching Dragon Gate Network. Then there are YouTube digests on the Dragon Gate Japan YouTube channel, another different YouTube channel, which I will explain more about this when we talk about the shows and touring part of it. But they are digest where they put 1 or 2 matches from really small shows up in full. That's like weekly.
Again, this is really common in Japanese wrestling. There's actually, like, even places like 01 have a very similar setup. You'll see a lot of companies that will have YouTube pages where they put these digest type of videos up as well. Just to kind of... They don't show full matches, but they'll try and get you hyped to see the full matches in a lot of ways. And also keep you up. Even if you don't watch the shows in full, you can watch the digest and you'll more or less know what's going on there. Again, a very common tactic in Japanese pro wrestling.
Yeah, and I'll talk more about the digest later, because it relates to the tournaments and the shows, the touring and stuff like that. But then finally, before we move over to the other stuff, these are some important content creators to follow. Of course, you can follow us. we talk about the show.
Yes.
I am the ultimate worker. I need to promote my shit first. No, but you can follow the Dragon Gate's English Twitter account, Dragon Gate EN English, and you can also follow Dragon Gate's English commentator and translator of all the promos at DG_J. Jay is fantastic. He does such a good job as a commentator and as a translator of the promos, because he speaks Japanese and he speaks English fluently. So he immediately has the translated version of a promo ready on his Twitter account or on commentary.
Let me just say one thing about him. He's a kind of inspirational story too.
Yeah.
Because I know him as a commentator, obviously, but I mainly know him from running his old website, iHeartDG, which is the site he used to run, which was like by far the source. If you're a DDT fan, you'll know Dramatic DDT.
Yeah.
He was like that, but even more inside, pretty much, because he always. I don't think there's a single person who knows as much about a singular wrestling company in any country or promotion or even fans that he knows about Dragon Gate. And he's always been that way since literally 20 years ago. He knew stuff going on in Toryumon. If I saw him. If you dug up old stuff on message boards and stuff from 2004, 2005, before I even had the internet, like he was there talking about it. He is a genius when it comes to Dragon Gate. You could not pick a better person, and he went from running that website to actually working for the company, which is an amazing story in and of itself.
It is a great story, and I'm really thankful for that, because he is very much a so insightful guy to just talk, to listen to talk, and to talk to just in general, because I've talked with him a couple of times, and he knows so much that if you have any question about Dragon Gate, he can definitely inform you on that. And then there's two other content creators that you should follow. The first off is the Voices of Wrestling show, Open the Voice Gate, which is a podcast that have been covering Dragon Gate for way longer than we have. It's run by Mike Spears and Case Lowe, and they of course are on the Voices of Wrestling website and YouTube channel and Spotify and all that. So they are a podcast I definitely recommend listening to. They also have done interviews with Jay that really help, where you can really hear Jay's insight from just working in Dragon Gate and stuff like that. Then there's a bit of a new content creator for Dragon Gate content, and that is Gutdozer's YouTube channel. He is a guy that does short form explanations about Dragon Gate in video format, and he also has cool series about different stuff. He has a series about Masquerade, and he has a series explaining the backstory behind all of the Ultimo Dragons, like J Crown titles in that infamous picture. He is a great guide, friendly guide YouTube channel to follow. So if you still have questions after listening to this podcast, you can go to his YouTube channel and find even better explanations.
Shout out to Gutdozer. Open Voice Gate, obviously, up there. They've got sources within the company. They know what they're talking about. I've never really talked to Spears that much, but I know he's been covering things for a long time, and I know Case pretty well. He's been on my show before, actually, on my other show. And those guys, they're not just knowledgeable, they're very passionate about Dragon Gate. And that kind of fuels their knowledge in a lot of ways, because you can be knowledgeable and it can be in more of a business mind, a computer mind, but their heart is really in Dragon Gate as well. They're very passionate. They love Dragon Gate more than any other promotion, by far. And then those guys are aware of other promotions and stuff, obviously, but they really are waving that DG flag. So you got to check them out if you have any interest in DG. Talk to those guys or listen to those guys, because they are gonna set you on the right path 99.9% of the time.
Yeah, but yeah, that has been. You now know how to watch and how to keep up with Dragon Gate. So let's explain the titles. Starting with the world title, the Open the Dream Gate Championship, currently held by Madoka Kikura. This title is very unique because the champion's name is etched on a metal plate that is locked behind a gate, and every challenger earns a key that they can use to open that Dream Gate if they win the title. And replace the champion's name with their name, but only if they win the title, of course. But if they lose, they have to give their key over to the champion, and the key gets added to a rail on the title, and it's a really cool and unique look for a world title, and it's one of the things I really adore about it.
Yeah, this is another thing that you'll notice about the titles in Dragon Gate. There's usually not a ton of explanation for them, but they have very unique names for them, and all of them all revolving around the gate, pretty much. Whatever it is, Open the X Gate will be their title name. Somewhat similar, if you are a Joshi fan in Stardom, they have different names, blah blah blah, of Stardom title. they'll have unique names for it. So Dragon Gate keeps their identity in check through the titles as well. I think that's a cool thing of the promotion. Like you said, the key, that's a very unique thing, and they've done that too when they did spin off. This is something we kind of skipped over, but they did a thing called Dragon Gate USA in the late 2000s, which was a US spinoff, obviously, of Dragon Gate, and that's really where I actually first knew them as a fan, was from the US spinoff.
Yeah.
And they continued it there as well. So you really get to see a lot of the heart of the company. Again, I don't know if this goes here, if I'm skipping ahead or something, but the thing about DG when it comes to them as a company, out of all of them, they are like, I don't want to say a mom and pop operation, but it really is ran as like, everybody does different stuff in the company. Like people, the stuff we were talking about, like uploading the shows, it's very likely a member of the roster is doing that.
Yeah.
So if they ever have graphics for their T-shirts, the faction logos, things like that, a member of the roster is doing that. Every level of the company, the wrestlers are pitching in to make this a success in its own way.
The merch stands are run by the wrestlers, not like staff.
Exactly.
The ring is set up by the wrestlers. It's such a, the wrestlers run the promotion. That's definitely the feeling you can get by watching their shows. And yeah,
like the Dreamgate was actually, of all the titles, that was actually their first title. For the first show of Dragon Gate after the Toryumon split, the Dreamgate was there.
Yeah.
And it's the top title, obviously. It's the world title of the promotion.
It is the title that if you have been recommended like a big Dragon Gate singles match, it will probably involve the Dreamgate title because it's the world title. It says itself. This is the most coveted price of the company, and everyone vies to get it. Then,
do you know who the first Dreamgate champion was?
It was not. Was it? No, it was not Shima. Was it?
It was Shima.
Okay.
He. The thing is, he didn't win the title. He was the last champion of Toryumon.
Yeah.
So he automatically got the title.
Yeah.
Like on the first show, they basically gave it there.
Yeah.
So yes, Shima. You've heard his name already a bunch of times. He was very instrumental in this promotion. But one thing
it would not be his last reign with the title, to say it for sure.
No, it definitely would not be the last reign. But also, when they, like, a lot of times you'll see if a guy, after he beats the challenger, they'll put the key on the title.
Yeah.
Like to have it, so if a guy has, I remember in the past there's been guys that have a lot of title defenses, and you'll see the keys hanging off the title, and it kind of adds that extra layer to it.
It adds a prestige to the title that very few titles have, where at the end of a long reign, you see the challenger pick up the title, and it's just full of all of these keys that the champion had, and it's really cool. It's a really cool thing, and I've been, ever since the new design came out, I've been clamoring to have like a guy that has like 10 keys on it, but they haven't had that yet since the title got redesigned. I think the guy that had the most keys recently was Yuki Yoshioka.
Yeah, that was just at the start of the year.
Yeah.
How many defenses did he have? 6, I think?
I think at the end of the reign he had 6, yeah.
Yeah, because he had Minoru, Eita, Yamato, Benkei, Mochizuki. So that would be 5. Was there one that I'm missing? I think that's it, though.
Yeah, but the thing is, you only get it when you have a successful defense. So a count out or a DQ doesn't count. You don't get to add the key to your belt then. And also, Kikura, the current champion, has not defended it yet. So if you, after this show, are watching Kobe World for the first time and you are confused why he doesn't have any keys, and you hear us talking about all the keys, that's because he hasn't had a successful defense of the title yet. But if he wins versus Yuki Yoshioka Kobe World, he will add Yuki Yoshioka's key onto his title. And then we have the default mid-card title, but it's also a junior heavyweight title. The Open the Bravegate Championship. The current champ is Jason Lee. This is, of course, a junior heavyweight title, which means you have to be under or exactly 83 kilograms, or I think it's like 147 pounds or something like that.
187. No,
187.
yeah.
Math. But yeah, sometimes they go away from that rule, and if the challenger makes sense, but most of the time they stay under that weight limit.
Wrestling would never lie to us.
Yeah.
I refute these accusations.
True. But yeah, this is, of course, it says itself. It is the high speed, like, it is the title that is fought really quickly, and all of the matches rarely go 20 minutes plus, is what I mean. It is a very fast-paced title, and don't be shocked when a title match goes like barely 10 minutes for this title, because it is the high-speed, high-paced junior heavyweight title.
Yeah, I think you explained it pretty well. This title came a little bit later than the Dreamgate. They redesigned it though, didn't they?
Yeah.
Was this one of the ones they redesigned a few years ago?
Yeah, every title got redesigned then.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They redesigned all of them. Yeah, I always associate this one with what you said, the more or less the IC title, but also the high speed title as well.
Yeah.
It's like a cross between the Intercontinental and the Cruiserweight title almost. There's a fun story of the original title though. How they set this up was they broke the title into 8 pieces and gave each competitor a piece of the title.
Yeah.
And then when they won the tournament, they ended up they put the title together. Like all 8 pieces of the title that they broke up, it was like a puzzle. They put it together to form the title. Which they obviously don't do that with this new one, I guess, because they it doesn't look like it's broken up anymore.
Yeah, but there's also a thing about this where that whole broken up part of it led to them saying that every champion can create the title as his own, and in his own image. And they rarely go back to it, but they did it earlier this year when Minurita held it, where they created a title in his image, where it's a like mini version of the title because he's a mini version of Kota Minoura. And they have done that before with this title, and it's like kind of a thing they can do with the title if they find a creative way to do it.
Yeah, and again, that's a very common staple of secondary titles as well. You see it even back to the IC title in New Japan. DDT, you've seen it with different strap colors or things like that. They play around with that a little bit as well, but mostly it's just a mid-card title that has high-speed matches. Like for the smaller portions of the roster, this gives you something to go for, pretty much.
This title has basically been Dragon Kid's career. to explain it better that way.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. It is the junior heavyweight title, but then we move over to the Open the Twin Gate title. The current holders are Susumu Mochizuki and Yasushi Kanda in their first reign with the title. The first reign of Yasushi Kanda and the 7th reign of Susumu Mochizuki. But it is the tag titles. That's the simple rule about it. The tag titles and the trios titles both are defended under Lucha rules, which means you don't need to make tags in the match. You can enter the match at any time.
Yeah, as I said, DG in general is heavily influenced by Lucha Libre. You know that you have to understand that right away. Yeah, but the tag titles, they are the tag titles. So, the Twin Gates are the tag titles pretty much. They were another one that came around a little bit later. I think they came around even later than the Brave Gate, to be honest. Because at first, they had this is another thing at the time as well. You'll see this even with Wrestle 1 when they had titles. They had these indie titles, were, and they had their own tag titles. Like, they weren't using them, but then they were just like, okay, we're going to get our own tag titles. And that was around 06, maybe? This one, to me, I don't know how you would rank the titles, pretty much. I think that the Twin Gates, historically, have been right. They're the secondary titles. Like
Yeah,
even more.
I
Yeah.
count that also. I just
Yeah.
go to Bravegate before it, but yeah.
yeah. Well, it was good because it was a singles title, but I think in importance, the Twin Gates would beat the Brave Gate to most people overall. We've seen them main event and have very like amazing tag teams. Over the years, going back to
like the first champions of the Twin Gate were Doyoshi, who Naruki Doi and Masaru Yoshi, which of course later on became known as Speed Muscle over in the States. And that is one of the best tag teams of all time.
Yeah, like they're a legendary team.
Yeah.
And even Doi's second team with Yamato became a legendary team in their own right.
So
as well.
The thing about these titles are that it's not like in New Japan where the heavy tag titles are like they're rarely held by the ace. In this company, the ace can hold the Twin Gate while he's not the Dream Gate champion. Like Yamato has held it multiple times while he was ace, and it's a title that like gets treated like the secondary, as you said, the secondary title. It's a title that can main event a lot of the time. It is probably the most like. Again, as I said with the singles titles, where if you look for a good singles match in Dragon Gate history, you will find it open the Dream Gate title match. If you're looking for a good tag team match in Dragon Gate history, it will always be with for the Twin Gate. And it's just it is one of the best titles in the company, and it has one of the best legacies in the company also.
Yeah, like this is a promotion that tag team wrestling is valued. Don't think negative, because a lot of the bigger companies, like again, New Japan is kind of my go-to for big companies, but there are others. I mean, in All Japan and Noah, the tag titles are treated with respect somewhat, as much as any title in Noah can be treated with respect. I think the tags are among the best. But in New Japan, the tag division is it's more like American style WWE, where the tag teams don't mean as much. But in DG, the tag wrestling is not a downgrade significantly. It's more just a different style, but you could easily be a main eventer as a tag wrestler.
Yeah. And then we move over to the final titles that are active currently. The Open Triangle Gate title, which is the trios title, the natural currently held by the Natural Vibes trio of Big Boss Shimizu, Casey, and Jackie Funky Kame. This title, much like the Twin Gate, it is fought under Lucha rules, but this is the title that follows units. It follows the unit storylines. If two units are feuding, they will be feuding over the title. It is a title that can change. It's not a title that is very known for having big, all-time great reigns. It is more a title just that follows whatever they want to do with the current unit alignments and stuff like that. And it's also a title that can bring younger people up in elevation, like it did last year with Mochizuki Jr. and then Ishin. And again, it is a title that is very unit based because it's the trios title.
Funnily enough, this title actually came before the Twin Gates and the Brave Gates. They introduced this pretty much right after the Dream Gate, which was again on its very first show, so it was there from literally day one. The Triangle Gates came a little bit after. Again, in Lucha Libre, trios wrestling is very, very important. It's as big as singles matches, except for big mask matches. Trios is kind of like the normal match type, kind of like in America singles matches are. In Mexico, trios matches often are kind of default, and that makes singles matches more special, is kind of their thinking. And Dragon Gate adopted that strategy early on. And the Triangle Gate, I remember at the start, again, they did redo the titles, but basically their idea was there would be a power guy, a technical guy, and an all-round type of guy. I forget what they put on it, but they put something on the title to represent that. And they changed the title name, but the idea is still mainly intact. They wanted to have that idea for the Triangle Gate titles, that you would have a power guy, a speedy guy, and then a guy that could be anything. You know, like they want to mix the styles. They don't want to have all three speed guys. Kind of, they want to have different styles represented. And that still kind of carries on today. You know, so like I mean, obviously with this team, it perfectly represents that. The one they have now.
They have the big guy in Big Boss Shimizu. They have the all-arounder in Casey, and they have the younger, high-speed, junior heavyweight Jackie.
Yeah. See, so they specifically wanted to put that in, and you could see that it translates to the ring and how they book the titles. Even with their challengers coming up, you could see they try to do different things. But these titles are important. There's been times where, in the past, maybe again around 10 years ago, maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, before the Shima split, where these titles would get more time than any other matches. A lot of times it would be three-way trios matches.
There are some legendary matches for this title. I wasn't saying that, but yeah.
no, I wasn't saying you were. I just wanted to mention that there was like three-way titles. I bet sometimes they would get too much time as a fan sometimes, where they couldn't quite live up to the epic nature of those obviously legendary matches.
They like to do to defend this and the tag titles can be very often defended in like trios in 3 ways and stuff like that. And it's very much served as a get all the people into this one match. And
this one wild. Especially is great for that. Yeah.
And I love it. It is the Triangle Gate is a title that is like brings so many fun matches to the cards, because they just sent 6 people out there to just go wild for 10 to 15 minutes or almost 20 sometimes. Rarely in between the 20-30 mark. But this is also the title that has changed hands the most times of all the titles. The current champions are the 86th champions, and only the Twin Gates have changed at like close to that, and that's 63. So this is a title that, as I said, it can change hands like pretty quickly, because it is a title that doesn't need to have like the big long super reigns.
Yeah, this one is very often it's always been that way.
They don't shine away from giving it to outsiders either. It's like they did that last year during a very weird period where it was just bouncing around between Noah and Dragon Gate, which was very dumb. It was not fun at all, but that was the only title they could do that with, because this title in the long run doesn't mean that much.
Yeah, or it's just kind of like the history of the title. I mean, even the tag titles, a lot of times with these guys, especially early on, I mean, the history of Dragon Gate was, and it's not, again, we'll kind of get this more when we talk about the roster, but nowadays it's not as much, but the history of DG, you're talking about a lot of really small dudes. And a lot of times, small dudes working a lot of shows get injured. So you'll see, like, these kind of smallish dudes take an injury, maybe if they're a tag champion or a Triangle Gate champion, they'll have to vacate the titles. If you look through the history of the titles, you'll see a ton of times where it's like, you go to cage match on these pages, like vacant. Like, every year I'll have a new vacant pretty much on the titles. That's happened a ton of times with both the Twin Gates and the Triangle Gates.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, that is the title scene right now. Of course, they have had other titles. The most prominent one being the Open Owari Gate title, which was like the comedy title, which obviously was always held by Kurumama Ishikawa. But it was the comedy title. They are making a slight return with that title on the Biden Zero shows, but it doesn't matter. They won't take it seriously, so it doesn't need to be mentioned that much. And
the idea behind that was, like, it doesn't matter who wins or loses, it's who the crowd picks. Like whoever gets the biggest fan reaction will get the title. It wasn't about wins and losses, so it was a very unique title. I actually thought it was kind of cool, but, like you said, it's not that prominent anymore.
Yeah. It currently is vacated and inactive, and
they haven't done anything with it in years at this point.
Yeah, but I mention it because they said that they would bring it back for a special occasion on the Biden Zero show later this year in July.
Good.
So
Bring it back. I say.
but then we move over to, speaking of shows, we move over to the big shows and how touring works. So starting off, we'll talk about. So these are the shows that get like big streamed on, that gets treated like big pay-per-views on the Dragon Gate network, that always are like loaded with the cards, and they of course have tours, but we'll talk about them later. First, just to mention the big shows. So starting off next year, this is something that is only special for next year because we haven't tried this, they haven't had this before. But starting next year, they will start having a big show in January in Yokohama Budokan, but they have not said anything more about it except it's happening in January and it's in Yokohama Budokan, and that it's a new like big show at the start of the year. But we don't know anything else about it, so I just needed to mention that. But then, other than that, the first big weekend of Dragon Gate's year is Champion Gate, which is always in early March. This is a 2-night show from Osaka Edion Arena number 2, and it always, on these two shows, they split the shows in two, and they have 2 title matches at both, and the goal of the weekend is to defend all the titles. And the first night is always like main evented by the Twin Gate, and the second night is always main evented by the Dream Gate. And the Dream Gate the Dream Gate match always is a proving yourself ready match for the main event scene. They bring a challenger that haven't really proven himself worthy of being in the main event scene yet, and try him out and see how he works. It's like send him out to sink or swim in a Open the Dream Gate title match. And it's kind of like, which is why you should never expect someone big to challenge the Dream Gate champion at the Champion Gate shows. It will be a like unproven guy. Kind of.
Yeah, these shows aren't as big as like the big pay-per-view shows, but they're bigger than their normal shows.
Yeah.
Like something like this would be counting that. And I mean, you saw that this year with the one this year was Strong Machine J getting a title shot, which was like that, and it spun off into a feud that's lasted to Kobe World. So you could see stuff like that happen on there, but they're like not, again, they're bigger than normal shows, but not as big as the big shows.
Yeah, they're. Why I'm separating them is because they aren't tour shows. They aren't.
Exactly. They're bigger than those.
Their own shows.
Yeah.
And especially this next one, which never gets is treated like a big show at all, but it is not a tour show. It is Memorial Gate in Wakayama. It is late March. Again, this is definitely not a big show because it's more of an obligation of having a show in this venue for the TV station. But it always features at least one title match, so that should be mentioned.
Yeah, what you said is totally true. It even started they started this around like the early 2010s. Maybe 2011, 12. I think 2012 might have been it. They started there, and basically it was for that exact reason. It was for the TV station, even back then. So it's very local to the Wakayama area, and they still do it even today. But like you said, it's not as big as the pay-per-view, so surely.
Yeah. Then there is the first big show of the year, Dead or Alive in Aichi, Nagoya. This always happens on either May 5th or May 6th on the Golden Week weekend. This is Dragon Gate's Golden Week show. It is up until this year, it is their big start of the year show. Of course, next year we will have the Yokohama Budokan show as the start of the year show, but this is the first of the big pay-per-views. This normally in its history has been main evented by a big bonkers steel cage match, which always is just unit fun and a lot of weird stuff and very unique to this show. They sadly have gone away from that the last 2 years and seems to be holding back the steel cage for other things, which we'll see at Kobe World this year.
Yeah, it's a really unfortunate thing because there's cage matches, and then there's dead or alive cage matches.
Yeah.
And they've gone away from that for a few years now, unfortunately. But if you go back in the, if you find them somehow, if you're just interested to see what it's like, you'll see situations where there'll be people capture the flag rules, brawling outside of the cage. The factions will brawl with each other. They'll have a huge slingshot. A guy will go to the 10th row and pull it back and slam on people. There'll be water guns, pies, like total comedic style, but in this outrageous situation.
But also, it leads to some really cool storylines moments. At some of these cage matches has led to one of the it has led to infamous heel turns and babyface performances, especially from Yamato in the it is such a unique thing. All of the Dead or Alive shows are on the Dragon Gate network, and I recommend you just finding a year and watching the steel cage match of that show. Then you will see what we're talking about and how unique this kind of steel cage match is compared to any other company's steel cage matches.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Just pick a year, and in the 2010s will probably be the best because you'll get a lot of guys that are still around. Pick a year, and you will find something very, very amusing and special as well. And I don't know what the reasoning behind going away from it is, but hopefully they can get back to it one day because we miss these wild, outrageous Dead or Alive cage matches.
And we don't know how the cage match at Kobe World this year will be. So yeah,
it won't be like that though. Like I said, it's not a faction match; it's a singles match, and I mean there is a lot of heavy.
They have done that. They have done that at Dead or Alive also. They had the Open to Dream Gate title being defended in it one time.
Yeah.
But then we move over to the biggest show of the year, Kobe World Pro Wrestling Festival. It always happens in July or early August. It gets its name from the venue and the city it's located in. They are running it every year in World Memorial Hall in Kobe, their home turf. This is their home show. This has every year since its inception been treated as the biggest show of the year. They always stack the show to its fullest. We are on the verge of it coming soon. It is the show that brings in most viewers every year, and normally they have the King of Gate winner, which is their tournament, face the Dreamgate champion in the main event. But this year they are doing the King of Gate after Kobe World. Dylan, you are not a fan of that, but
I don't think many people are.
I'm mixed on it. I'm holding back until I see what they do with King of Gate. But this is the biggest show of the year. That's pretty much everything I can say.
Yeah. I guess their WrestleMania or whatever would kind of be this.
Yeah.
Kobe World, I mean, this has been their home turf even back to Toriyama, like even before DG was DG. So, obviously that's their big show. They don't always. I mean, we're just look at this year coming up. Like you can see here, they don't always book it like other people's big show, like other companies' biggest shows. We've seen multiple times. I mean, last year was a huge failure on what they tried. Things that really derailed what they were doing, unfortunately. But there's been other times in the past where you've seen shows built around maybe Ultimo Dragon returning. We mentioned that earlier. That was a big part of Kobe World that year.
Masaru Yoshino, one of their biggest stars, retiring in 2021.
That too, and they've even had stuff where, I mean, again, last year was the terrible version of that. Not as bad, but still not great version was when they switched the title immediately before the show, which was when BB Hulk had a legendary title reign, and they swapped it to Yoshino because he was going to face T-Hawk in the main event. Again, that wasn't great, but it was not as bad as last year. But the point is, they've done stuff to where, it's hard to imagine something like that. 2 weeks before Wrestle Kingdom, Okada loses the title to somebody, and that probably wouldn't happen. But DG has not been afraid to do stuff that is a little outside the box for their Kobe World show. Normally, to be honest, it's better if they just do it like with the King of Gate winning, and then they just set up a normal title defense. But we'll see how this year's goes. And like they're doing another thing different this year, and hopefully it works out.
I think the reason they didn't have the King of Gate this year before Kobe World was because they had planned of having the steel cage match on the Kobe World main event.
Yeah, that's
speculation,
different.
though. Of course, that is speculation.
Well, it's not speculation that it's different, though. Like that,
yeah.
that is true. And that historically they haven't been afraid to do that. But just in the past, when they've gone against the grain, it's usually been pretty mixed results at best. And like I said, last year I think was a universally panned move.
I think this is the first time, except for the year Masaru Yoshino retired, where the Dream Gate won't be in the main event of the show. It will be the cage match on the show.
Yeah, the cage match is what it is. That's not even that important to what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like they just they are not afraid to do different things. Title changes at the last second. You know, people turning right before the show. So, like they've done stuff that kind of rocks the boat right before their big show, and not been afraid to do that. And a lot of companies don't handle their big shows like that, which could be good or bad depending on your viewpoint. But there's been a lot of legendary moments on the show as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. It is also a company that's a show that kind of they always book it. They have, of course, a outside. This year they have Hiromu Takahashi coming in to have like a big singles match, and they have done that before, where they have brought in big outsiders for this show. This is feels like the one show where they are open to bringing in people from outside. And it's kind of like they go away from being in their own little bubble and make the show as accessible to new fans as possible. But again, next week this show will be previewed by this show, so you can come back and listen to our preview next week to learn all about this year's show. But then we move over to Dangerous Gate, which falls in late August this year, but it normally happens in September. This is the third of the big shows of the year. This is in Auto War General Gymnasium, and it's normally the fallout of Kobe World. That is the main thing about it. And they always have, if the new champion is, if there was a new guy winning the title at Kobe World, they will have like the first big defense here.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. It's one of the bigger shows for that reason. There's nothing really that like special about it compared to the other ones we talked about, but it is a big show, and you'll get a great match on it almost always in the main event.
And then there is in November the Gate of Destiny. This is the Osaka Big Show. This is from Edion Arena #1, Osaka Prefectural Gym. This is the big November show, and again, continuing, as I said about Dangerous Gate, this is treated like another one of their big 5 shows of the year. Then there is the Gate of Origin, which is late November, early December. This is a like Memorial Gate and Champion Gate. It's more of an obligation to have a Sendai big show quotation marks. It's normally main evented by a title match, either the Twin Gate or the Dream Gate. Rarely the Dream Gate, but mostly the Twin Gate. And then at the end of the year, Final Gate always happens in the last week of December. As the name suggests, it is the big final show of the year, and it's always from Fukuoka, and it normally is in Fukuoka Kukai Center.
Yeah, that's always, I think, outside of Kobe World. They've kind of positioned that as kind of their next big show.
Yeah.
In terms of like, you'll see, like if there's going to be a title change that happens, that's always a threat. Like Final Gate is never, you can never count out a title change.
Well, and Final Gate has been a historical show for people that won the title at Kobe World to lose the title.
Yeah, exactly. Great point. There, and even at times you don't even expect it. Obviously, the famous one was when Kai won the title there.
Yeah,
and nobody expected. But even Yamato winning the title in the first place over Benkei, nobody thought that would happen.
Shun, wasn't it? No, it beats Benkei.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Doi beat Benkei. Sorry, I confused Doi and Yamato. Doi beat Benkei there, and nobody expected that when that happened. You know, Final Gate, like you said, you can never count out a title change there.
Yeah. But yeah, that is the big 5 shows of the year are Dead or Alive in May, Kobe World in July, Dangerous Gate in September, Gate of Destiny in November, Final Gate in December. Those are treated as the big 5 shows. Then there is the normal touring. At least once per month, Dragon Gate does a Cork and Hall show. This always gets treated like a big deal outside of like the other tour shows and feels like a must-watch show because it features a lot of storyline developments and stuff like that. And it's also the only tour show that has English commentary. So they sometimes do it back to back in Corkin, like on back-to-back nights, but they also have done like one at the start of the month and one at the end of the month.
Yeah,
and
you're totally right.
They like to stack. They have Dreamgate matches on there. They have had Dreamgate matches on there. They have also had Dreamgate changes there. They have had like a lot of title changes there. They treat Cork and Hall as a big venue, just like DDT and like it is like they don't treat Corkin like New Japan or Stardom treat Corkin.
Yeah, that's totally correct.
And yeah, as you said earlier, every show, much like every show has, and every title has the word gate in it. Every tour also has the word gate in it. They have the Open the New Year Gate tour. They have the Fantastic tour, Fantastic Gate tour. It's just they have gate in it because that's the unique part of Dragon Gate. It's the gate. Of course, the rest of the normal months are just a set tour shows that get streamed. If they can handle streaming, they will be streamed from like KBS Hall or Kobe Sambo Hall. But when they aren't, on those shows, there are no commentary. Those are just tour shows. Lately they've been adding wrestler commentary, but the microphones are really bad, so I recommend just watching it with no commentary.
A lot of these tour shows you have to, if you get really invested, you can get in there.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they're kind of superfluous a lot of times, to be honest.
I always say that if you want to start watching Dragon Gate, you watch the Cork and Hall shows and the big shows. You don't need to watch tour shows. Those are for us. Those are, not to say it like that, but those are like for the people that are really invested in Dragon Gate.
What they're really for is for the local fans. Like that's what they really build those shows for. Hey, DG's coming to your town here. And now, before we would never see them in the first place. But since this happened, since they had the tour and the network and everything like that, now we can see them. Although it's not always like totally. It's not. You don't have to watch it. Let's put it that way.
They have had title changes and on those shows, and it's like if they have gone up to Sapporo, they have changed the titles there. Like the current Triangle Gate champions won the titles in Sapporo. Why? Because it's Casey's hometown. So he won the title in his hometown. It served as kind of like, oh, I am the hometown hero, so I got to win a lesser title here, kind of.
Yeah. You'll see stuff like that as well.
But that is not all, because Dragon Gate, like those are the tour shows that get streamed on Dragon Gate Network. But there's also, the thing is, Dragon Gate runs more than any other promotion in Japan. They are probably one of the only promotions that go to like the really small places. Like they can go to like a really small venue in the middle of nowhere in Japan and have not supposed to air shows because they are house shows, but they put at least 2 of the matches up on the YouTube Digest, which I mentioned earlier. And those shows are more just for the fans there, especially for there because those are very small villages they go to, like where no other wrestling comes.
And that's another thing, kind of what you said earlier about Corcoran being a big deal for them. This is a big reason why a lot of the bigger companies will kind of saturate the Tokyo area.
Yeah.
DG is the company that hits everywhere.
Yeah.
Like that's how it's, again, this is how it's always been.
And that has created their fan base. Like, that has gained them a lot of fans. If you see any interview with some Joshi wrestlers from, like, nowhere, like, from small villages, like Mayu Iwatani, her first introduction to wrestling was going to a Dragon Gate show. And she went to that because there were no other wrestling coming to her town. So then she saw that Dragon Gate came there, and she got brought with her, got brought by someone there, and fell in love with the sport because of that.
Yeah, that's true. You'll see that a lot of times too. Why a lot of the deathmatch guys are very influential to a lot of the Joshi wrestlers like that. Or just any indie person. Where DG, like I said, the New Japan might not always go everywhere, and a lot of the companies there will saturate the area.
Yeah.
All Japan's gotten better at that over the years, by necessity more than anything. But
Stardom does it also a lot now. They go to like smaller places.
Yeah, definitely. And DG though, they are the OGs. Like when everyone else was really focused on Tokyo, they really hit everywhere, and their home base is in Kobe, so that tells you all you need to know, pretty much.
Yep. And of course, on these YouTube Digest, sometimes they have tournament matches on there, and that's the only way of watching the tournament matches. But we'll talk about that when we talk about the tournaments. But then we move over to the roster and the rest of the units. Dragon Gate's roster is very unit-based, like a lot of Japanese pro wrestling companies, but Dragon Gate especially is focused a lot around the units. It's like most of the roster are in the units, but there are, of course, some people that are unaffiliated, but most of the people are in units. I'll start off talking about the first one, the leading unit. It's not the biggest, but it features the big three baby faces of the company. So I want to mention them first because they are the three leaders of the company, kind of. They are D-Courage, Yuki Yoshioka, Dragon Daya, Madoka Kikura. The three biggest baby faces in the company in one unit. The successor to the dragon name, Dragon Daya. He is the successor of Dragon Kid. Dragon Kid was the successor of the Ultimo Dragon. Then there's Yuki Yoshioka, who gets treated like the Dragon Gate's future/current ace. And then there's the new Open the Dream Gate champion, Madoka Kikura, who had one of the most feel-good wins earlier this year.
Yeah, last year, they've each had their moments in the sun, pretty much, because at the start of the unit, it was originally right after Daya had lost his mask, and Yoshioka as well, and they basically had this very emotional angle that led to once they were rivals, and now they're friends, pretty much. And they were this super hot babyface team. But Daya coming in with a skateboard, he was kind of the focus guy for the first few months. Then King of Gate came, and Yoshioka got that role.
Yeah.
And he was the main guy, and obviously won the Dreamgate title, and had a reign that is controversial among some people. I personally really thought it was great.
Yeah,
but there are a lot of detractors.
The best Dreamgate match. Yeah.
And now Kikuta is the champion, like pretty much. Now, like this year, they've switched from the other two. Yoshioka lost the title at the very start of the year, and Kikuta has kind of been who they've chosen to focus on up to this point.
Yeah, and of course that is all leading to the unit versus unit to open the Dreamgate title match later at Kobe World this year, which is between
Yoshioka versus Kikuta
challenging Madoka Kikura. Of course, these three are the biggest babyfaces. Note that I didn't say a leader because they don't treat themselves. None of them are a leader. They are all together. They are kind of a trio that just of people that like, because the other units have set leaders that act like the leaders, are the main talkers. These three all rotate between talking. Of course, Dragon Daya takes the most pins because he's the junior heavyweight of the group, but they are just a trio of the best wrestlers in this company. Like, if you want to have good matches currently in this company, versus D-Courage is the best like trios match you can get.
Yeah, like I said, each guy's been focused on it at different points.
Yeah.
You know, like Daya was the main guy at first, then it was Yoshioka, and now Kakuta is having his turn. So the leader, quote unquote, is just whoever is getting pushed the most at the time, like to their. I mean, and we're still only a year or so in, like year and a half in at this point of D-Courage. So, and originally it was just Daya
originally
and
it was
Yoshioka.
just the tag team. That's where the name came from, because it's D, Daya, and Courage is what Yuki stands for in Japanese.
Yeah, exactly. Then Kakuta, after he came back from injury, he joined along with them. Much.
Because
Originally Kakuta.
Kakuta started as an assistant, but I think as they kind of like saw their chemistry together as a trio, they just continued. They just implemented him more into the group, kind of. Integrated him more into.
Yeah, and when he left, he was a heel. So he came back from injury, like as a new. And like this is a great way to elevate him. And I mean, he's the champion right now, so they clearly have seen it worked pretty well so far.
Yeah. Then we move over to the lead heel unit, led by it was first led by Kai, but it has obviously been taken over by Shun Skywalker. Shun Skywalker is the leader. Then there's Kai, then there's Hyo, then there's Diamante, who is a former CMLL wrestler, but is now a full-time Dragon Gate wrestler. He's a luchador. I think he's one of the few foreigners in the company. He's definitely the only Mexican in the company. And then there's Ishin, who is a rookie, who has been elevated a bit, but is still the freshest of these guys, in terms of experience.
I was saying, he's on the rise. Another situation where the leader is basically who they want it to be at the time. Originally, they were Red, like RED.
Yeah. So it's a unit that got formed out of the remnants of RED and Masquerade's feud that went all through 2021. And this unit was formed when Shun Skywalker had the most like infamous heel turn last year, when both factions got ended in one match, kind of, because like he kicked out Kota Minoura and Jason from Masquerade and joined RED, and RED kicked out Eita and all that. It's one of the most infamous angles of last year's Dragon Gate, and it's an angle that brought a lot of people back into the company or through the company for the first time.
Basically, they were doing this multi-man mass match, and in it was going to be the two Red guys versus the Masquerade guys, which were Daya and Shun. And Shun basically totally turned on Daya and cost him his mask. Everyone thought it would be Daya Inferno, who is Yoshioka, as it would turn out, and which he did do at the end. But basically, Shun totally screwed over Daya in the match, and it was this really crazy angle, which was like amazing. Like, it was so well done, and like you said, brought in a ton of new fans. Afterwards, Daya lost his mask. Nobody could believe it because everyone thought it would be Inferno. And then Inferno took off his mask anyway. That's another staple of Dragon Gate booking, and it's maybe wise to remember that going into this cage match, because DG will often, they'll do what you think they'll do, but in a way you don't expect. Like they'll do it they'll get there in a complicated way that you might expect in a straightforward way. Like that's happened tons of times over the years. But yeah, after that, Shun started this new heel character, Masquerade. I mean, that was a really short-lived faction. Like in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't very successful ultimately. Yeah. So they springboarded from that. Like you said, they kicked out Ada. I mean, RED lasted a little while before they did that, right? Like, there was a couple of months at least.
Because that Daya mask match was in late 2021 in December.
Yeah,
and then
December.
at this first Korkin of the new year 2022, they had the angle of Shun Skywalker fully joining RED, and then the rest of RED kicking out Eita and Kaito Ishida.
Yeah, so it happened like a month later. Okay.
Yeah, and also should be noted at the end of that match, like at the end of that show, this was so awesome. at the end of that show, SB Kento, who was the Bravegate champion, took the microphone and said, "Yeah, this was the last match of the show. Time to go home, people." And then the Open the Bravegate music started, and it was an impromptu. GM Ryo Saito created an impromptu Open the Bravegate title match, and the return of Dragon Dia without the mask with the skateboard came out and won the title by help of Dia Inferno, Yuki Yoshioka, and that was the creation of D-Courage. So
yeah, that all of that you just said was really great. That was among the better. And I've been watching DG for 13. Well, DG USA, so 2009, 2010, late 09, I think is when I first started watching DG. That was one of the better sequences of angles I can remember. That I've seen of DG was like with the Shun turn. Totally got him, elevated him and caught him on fire. Dia, man, he looked like the dude when that happened. I mean, it hasn't really worked out that way, but he looked like a superstar in the making when that happened, and just a great series of events. Early 2022, late 2021 was good times for DG.
Yeah, that's when I got back into the company. So, but then this is the heel unit. They are right now. They are definitely the most formulaic they have been. I complain about it a lot, but right now they need fresh blood or in need of change of color, kind of. Because a lot of their matches have gotten kind of samey. If you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. This is another thing where, from the very beginning of all of this, there is a heel unit that is basically very similar to what they're doing. Yeah. This is the latest incarnation of stuff that's happened since 2004, where you had Aganiso, and then there was Italian Connection, Crazy Max, Mad Blanky, Berserk. They had Antias, which some of this stuff was more successful than others. But then it finally all came to RED, and they were the heel faction, and now Z-Brats are, like you said, we kind of outlined how they came to be. But all of these groups are basically the same, more or less.
Yeah, and then there's Natural Vibes, probably the biggest unit in Dragon Gate, definitely. They have 6 members. They are the biggest unit. It is led by Casey, and it's by the way, it's also the longest running unit in Dragon Gate right now. Natural Vibes has gone on for way longer than any of the other units.
Yeah,
but
just say too about Z-Brats.
Yeah,
that the heel unit is often very important because the way DG works, there's a lot of times, again, in other companies, this is a little different in DG than the others. You'll see an equal split of baby faces and heels, like good guys and bad guys.
Yeah.
In DG, there's way more good guys, and then there's usually all the heels are in this heel unit, more or less. And that's why they play a very central role. A few years ago, they did an angle where they were trying to call back on the Toryumon history, where they split. They did something way different than they usually do. But the factions then, there were only 3 factions. One was Toryumon Generation, DG Generation, and then RED had their own faction. And they were their own unit because that's how important the heel factions are in DG. If you're the main faction, the main heel faction, you're basically the center of the company a lot of the time, and that's played out pretty well at this point.
Yeah. But yeah, then this is one of the most babyface units that you can have. Natural Vibes, led by Casey, and other members are Big Boss Shimizu, Strong Machine J, UT, Jackie Funky Kame, and Jason Lee. This is a unit all about good vibes only. They always go out there and have a big dance to get the crowd hyped and have a great time, and they are all very popular with the fans. They are the guys that bring in that do the gong kid gimmick all the time, where they bring in the kid to the ring and have them ring the bell. They have started doing that lately. Again, they used to do that a lot back in the day. But this is the most babyface of the babyface units. Like the Courage are the big babyface main eventers. This is the big main eventers underdogs. The big babyface underdogs.
It's also worth mentioning that they were away for a while. During the middle of the time.
Yeah.
Like they had a period of inactivity. And when they came back, basically everyone thought that they were going to break up right away and it was going to lead to a heel turn.
Yeah.
Because this was an old faction. It had been gone for a few years based on the angle I just said about the Toriyama Dragon Gate. And then, because it was around for like a year, and then it was gone for a few years, and then they brought it back last year. Or it may have been late 2021 when they brought it back. But they brought it back, and everyone thought, oh, this is stupid. Why are they bringing this back? It's going to be a turn. But it turned out that they ended up being over. Like, the fans reacted to them very well and better than the first time.
This is definitely the most popular unit in Dragon Gate with the fans.
Yeah, they had great additions of people like Jackie Funky Kame, Jason Lee, people that... people that added...
last year.
Yeah, Strong Machine J. Yeah, we can't forget about him as well. Originally, they were like a reggae-inspired unit. You notice their colors are always like, very brightly colored, green and yellow, red-inspired type of deal. They were a reggae-based unit, and KZ obviously has the musical aspect. You mentioned the dancing. What you said is completely true. They are the true blue most popular unit to the fans of Dragon Gate.
Yeah, you will see so many people in the crowd with the natural vibes, like armbands or rings or the towels. They are really popular. Jason Lee and Jackie Funky Kame also have a subunit that is called that is a Kobe exclusive unit where they have with Ho Lun called Kung Fu Masters. That is because Kobe is very like Chinese filled company. No.
Hey! We cannot erase Super Shenlong the
Super
Third.
Shenlong, yeah.
Yeah, I will not stand for this Super Shenlong the Third erasure, my friend.
Yeah, true. But yeah, this is a subunit that is exclusive to Kobe,
which is my favorite unit as well. The Kung Fu Masters. I'm half Chinese, so but still, I love them. The Kung Fu Masters is awesome. That's a good point mentioning them, but they're still in natural vibes. Ultimately, more or less.
They are still in natural vibes. But yeah, then there is Gold Class led by Kota Minoura. Ben K, BB Hulk, and Minorita is the rookie. This is a unit all for the ladies. They like showing off how cool and masculine they are. And they like showing up, giving roses to the fans and getting female fans to like swoon over them and all that. They are very much appealing to women.
The whole company is kind of like that in a lot of ways. They're very much, they play into that a lot. But yeah, right now that's kind of their role, like the Ikemen type of deal.
Yeah,
it's not as pronounced now as it was when they first started, where that was like explicitly stated to be their goal. It was really unsuccessful the first go around. Nobody liked them actually when they first started.
But
then a lot of
ever since Ben K joined, they have become one of the most popular units.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, the first time go around, a lot happened where Doi left and Ishida left the whole company. Things were going downhill, like, for them. They were a really bad unit, to be honest.
And Kota Minoura had a really bad main event run.
Yes, exactly. Like, that was what I was mentioning last year, the thing that failed heavily. That was it. Like, they tried to shoehorn Minoura into a main event that he didn't need to be in. And
of course, when you see this unit all together, you will see that Minorita is the mini version of Kota Minoura. That is the part of the gimmick. It's supposed to be the whole thing. So
once again, this is something very common in Lucha Libre, where there's even an Ultimo Dragoncito in CMLL. There's Shockercito, all kinds of stuff like that. They relied on that heavily in Toryumon, like, again, the old days, the early goings of things. Now, it's not as prominent, but he plays off of that. Like that's a very
Yeah.
Lucha Libre inspired deal. He's trying to come into his own a little bit more so than being a direct copy of Minoru.
Yeah.
Like I mean, he won a title earlier in the
And
year.
he's also a pretty great wrestler, Minorita. It's like he fights. He is a Brave Gate wrestler. He won the Brave Gate, as you said.
Yeah, talented guy himself. But the key to that group to me is what you kind of said, which was Ben K.
Yeah.
When he joined, that changed the whole group's fortunes because they were basically everyone wanted them to die.
Yeah.
Pretty much they were like high end level, like when he came in. But because he's so awesome, he was able to really turn the fans around. BB Hulk went from a heel to a babyface and joined them. Like you said, more
And
of the yeah.
by doing that, by going from a heel to this gold class version of him, BB Hawk has been like entered a renaissance of his career. He has really been helped by this.
Yeah, absolutely. Very talented guy. When I started watching, BB was like one of my he wasn't one of he was my favorite guy in the company.
If you used to watch Dragon Gate back in the day, you will of course have heard of BB Hawk. He of course right now is pretty like his body is pretty messed up after all the bumps he has taken, which makes sense. And but he definitely puts it on when he's teaming with Gold Class, and I really like that. This year he has been a big highlight.
Yeah, he and Shingo were more or less the most famous Dragon Gate wrestlers to the outsiders for a long time. They came together, they're friends, blah blah blah, like teams, rivals.
Rivalry.
Yeah, they did it all together. They were kind of the ones that represented DG and other companies as well. Like they had a run in Noah. Like they are known, and obviously Shingo now is more well known than ever. In New Japan, but for me, I'll always have a soft spot for him, even though I recognize that he has broken down. But with the team, I think Minoru's done good work, and Ben K's been awesome. So you have a good, well-rounded unit at this point with them.
This is only this is also the only unit that includes. No wait, the D-Courage also does that. Never mind. This unit has two of the chosen leaders of the next generation. Kota Minoru and BB Hall. No, Kota Minoru and Ben K are both chosen Reiwa generation leaders. As same as we'll talk about that later. But yeah, then there is the M3K faction led by Masaki Mochizuki. And the other members are Susumu Mochizuki, Yasushi Kanda, and Mochizuki Jr., who is the son of Masaki Mochizuki. He is a second-generation wrestler. One of the few in this company, the other ones being Strong Machine J and Ishin. This is a pretty simple faction. It's veterans paying homage to the group in Torimon, Japan called M2K, which was Mochizuki Senior, Susumu Mochizuki, and Yasushi Kanda. They got the name was they are two Mochizukis and Kanda, so that was M2K. Now they are three Mochizukis and Kanda, so they are M3K. This whole unit was reincarnated because they used it as a way to introduce Mochizuki Jr. to the scene when they debuted last year.
Yeah, the original version was like a heel faction. They would always try, like their whole purpose was literally, we want to have bad matches that the fans don't like. So how are we going to accomplish that? We're going to force every match to be a countout. Like, we're not even trying to win. We're just trying to ruin these matches. And you still see that happen with M3K now, but much more in a babyface fashion. Like, they'll still try to go for countouts at times, but they're much more liked because they're old. No, because they're a veteran group, they can get behind that. But yeah, that's another thing that DG will always do. Again, they always call back to their history a lot of the times. There'll be stuff that you probably haven't thought about in years, and suddenly it'll come back up for some reason. And this is another case of that.
Yeah, and that is all the units as they are right now. Then there's the rest of the roster, which is pretty unaffiliated.
The home army, pretty much.
Yeah, the home army, the Sekigun. But I have kind of separated I have separated them into groups. We'll start first with the veterans, the Torimon generation veterans, Ultimo Dragon, Don Fuji, Konemawa Ishikawa, Genki Horiguchi, GM Ryo Saito, and I count Dragon Kid as that also.
Right.
Those are the people that kind of started in Torimon.
Yeah, and most of them are kind of awesome. To be honest, like
they are
even
still
now.
pretty good. Yeah, they like to have them, especially they like to have Don Fuji beat up the rookies, and it's really fun. Then there's like later on in Torimon veterans that kind of start at the end of Torimon, kind of got traded. They are from the next generation, kind of. Naruki Doi, Shuji Kondo, Sachi Hokubo, and Kagetora. Should be noted, Naruki Doi and Shuji Kondo are both currently freelancers for the company. They are mostly based in Dragon Gate, but they also have do wrestle for other companies. Notably, Kondo in Noah and Naruki Doi in All Japan and DDT.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, you summed it up. Like those guys all fit together. I think Doi is probably the one that everyone would point to. I mean, he's the one that's had the most success historically.
Yeah.
In the company, he was like an ace of the company for a long time.
Yeah, and he will be in a big featured match at the Kobe World, teaming with his former unit Gold Class. So he is still treated pretty big because, of course, he is one of the former big six of the company.
And
with
DK, as you know, he's going to be
also,
the main event as well. Yeah, and he's a guy that I always recommend because he's basically like to Dragon Gate what Rey Mysterio was to American companies. Just an amazing. I mean, he's small, but that he's used it. That's part of his charm, and he was doing stuff nobody else could do for a long time. Obviously, later generations caught up to him, but I mean, he was an innovative type of guy and a great performer.
Prominent wrestlers of these unaffiliated guys will be Ultimate Dragon, Dragon Kid, Naruki Doi, and the one I'm going to mention now, Yamato, the former ace, who is still very relevant, but now he's not a main eventer anymore. He gets put in big matches and he works a lot as an ambassador for the company. I would say that these four are the biggest names of the unaffiliated wrestlers.
Yeah,
have no unit.
Yeah, they've had the most success. I mean, Yamato's going to be in one of the main matches.
Yeah,
on Kobe World.
Hiromu Takahashi. So
yeah. So I think a lot of people keep their eyes on him as well. He's like you said, he's a former champion.
Earlier this year, he lost his unit, and after that, he said that he would stay out of the unit landscape for a year. So that is why he's currently unaffiliated.
Yeah, he's done a lot of great things in the past. He's been a heel, babyface. He's ran the gamut. Right now, he's a respected veteran. In his current role against Hiromu, he's probably going to lean more heel because we saw that in the Super Junior Festival they had in March. He was kind of like the main rival of Hiromu there, and they're paying it off on Kobe World. So, yeah, like a lot of talented guys who have done big things in the past in the company.
Then there is the rest of the roster that are unaffiliated. Eita, he is a freelancer who works mostly in Noah, but he's still working Dragon Gate from time to time, but he isn't that invested in Dragon Gate. You will never see it. You will not see Eita in a big storyline in Dragon Gate anymore.
Yeah, that's not going to happen anymore. But
it's a shame because I really like Eita, and I feel him in Noah is a waste of his potential. But
I mean, he just doesn't care about wrestling in general anymore. He doesn't care about Noah either. Don't worry. But I mean, he was one of my guys when he came in. I mean, him and T-Hawk were like that to me. That could have been a legendary team if they continued it.
Yeah.
They had one of the best Kobe World matches too when they won the Twin Gates. But yeah, Eita, talented guy, just a big fan of, and he was the leader of RED for a while.
Yeah.
So he was like a main guy in DG for a good bit, and I like him. It's just right now it's like he's basically past his prime, so to speak, just in terms of his care, I would say.
Yeah. Then there's Takeshi Yoshida, another veteran. likes to do the shut up gimmick. Then there's Problem Dragon, also sometimes called Mondai Ryu. It really depends on the spelling. The English spelling of his name is Problem Dragon, but the Japanese spelling is Mondai Ryu. Then there's Yosuke Santa Maria, who's also under the mask of Shenlong 3, Super Shenlong 3. Then there's Punch Tominaga, the ultimate jobber. Then there's Ho Ho Lun, the godfather, the commentator and the godfather of Southeast Asia wrestling, as he likes to call himself. But yeah, that is the veteran, the like unaffiliated roster members. Then there is the rookies that are not in units right now. I separate them because they are the rookies. I like to separate them because Dragon Gate gives rookies a lot, and they give them a lot of personality that you won't see rookies in New Japan or Noah or All Japan get, where they get a gimmick or a personality even before they are like ready to be featured. Most prominently there, the guy that is currently on excursion, but right now is on like visit back home, La Estrella. He is kind of a like luchador high flyer, but it feels like he works better as a Yave guy, but he has been kind of given a luchador high flyer gimmick. Then there's Ryu Fuda, then there's Kaito Nagano, then there's a former Korakuen Hall staff member, Daiki Yanaguchi. Then there's Yoshiki Kato, who right now is injured. And then there is the newest rookie, Ryoya Tanaka.
This is one of the best parts of Dragon Gate, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The rookie system, the way they handle the rookies is so great. It's not like this is a new thing. This is another thing that's been constantly historical for Dragon Gate. Every class, pretty much, like every era, so to speak, you're going to get a ton of great rookies in here, and people that stand out right away, people you see. Like when Fuda Nakamura came in to Dragon Gate, right away you knew, okay, this guy can lead the company. And he did, unfortunately briefly, but now hopefully he can get back up there. When you see people like, Kato right now, he's injured right now, but he's a guy that you see, oh, this guy has star potential. Like, he could be somebody. Now you see Tanaka. He's another guy. Like, we've seen him for, what, 3 matches? 2-3 matches? And he already feels like a guy that could be like, okay, this guy could be a main eventer for, like, when the time comes. They always give the rookies some personality of their own. It's not the black trunks, the black boots, all that bull crap that sucks. Like, they let them have their own deals, pretty much. Like, their own gear. And
sometimes even get put into units, like Mochizuki Jr. He has 1 year of experience, and he got put into a unit with his father.
He's another one where, like, right away you see Mochizuki Jr. Okay, this guy has got what it takes. I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, he is going to be a guy. He makes everything work. He's doing some of the best stuff with everybody, like bringing the best out of everybody. Him and Ishin had a great feud, and he did great in there. I mean, this guy has everything it takes. And those are guys you could see in DG where they will step up, stand out right away. And you get to follow their whole journey. If you jump in on the ground floor now, you're going to see Ryu Tanaka right away. And then you're going to be able to follow him for the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years to where he grows, and you can see what he does with it.
Yeah. It's really cool. You of course, and if you are in the same class, I almost said born in the same class, but it feels like born in the same class, because if you are in the same class, you will be connected forever. Like, we see the class of 2016 be connected really a lot, because Shun Skywalker, Yukio Shioka, and Ben K all have like so much story in between each other because they were all part of the class of 2016, and it's get referenced a lot. They show a lot of when they have big matches versus each other. They like to show when they were rookies facing each other and stuff like that. They get connected forever because they are in the same class, and it's kind of like it's really unique, and I really like it. The rookie system in Dragon Gate is really cool. And yeah, as you said, you get to connect with them from the start, and you get to follow their story from the start, and that is what I really like about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this is to me is one of the standout things if you're a DG fan to hang your hat on.
Then I'll just mention as we said, the big four veterans that are unaffiliated are Yamato, Ultimate Dragon, Naruki Doi, and Dragon Kid. I would say then there is the presented Reiwa Generation Big Six that are presented by the company as the leaders of the 2020s of this generation of Dragon Gate. This is a new thing. They have just recently started this whole storyline, and it was started earlier this year at Dead or Alive, where Madoka Kikura, after winning the title, said, "These are the six that are going to lead the company," and he said, Madoka Kikura, Yuki Yoshioka, Ben K, Kota Minoura, Shun Skywalker, and Strong Machine J. Those are the six leaders of the company, and as you see now at Kobe World, they are all in big matches. Kota Minoura is in the Triangle Gate match. Ben K is in the Twin Gate match. Strong Machine J and Shun Skywalker is in the main event, the biggest featured match of the show, the Steel Cage match, very much built around their feud with each other, which was added on by Shun Skywalker saying that Strong Machine J is not worthy of being in the Big Six. And you have two of the most great in-ring workers of the Big Six, Madoka Kikura and Yuki Yoshioka, facing each other in a big singles match. It is a new story that they started this year that is kind of harkening back to what they did last decade, when they did a very very similar angle, but that time with Yamato, Naruki Doi, Shingo Takagi, Masaru Yoshino, and Akira Tosawa, and who am I forgetting? BB Hulk? I think that's all of them. But yeah, it is. This is something that we'll see if it works out, but they have presented them as the big six leaders of the company.
Yeah, the first. This is another thing again. Remember what I said earlier about stuff that you never even thought about, and then it'll suddenly pop up, like out of nowhere? This was basically like that. I mean, the first thing happened 10 years ago or so, the original Big Six of DG, and it's not like it totally dictated the company that they were the only ones that could win the championship. Yeah. I mean, like I said, right after that, a year or so after that, BB Hulk had a year plus long title reign.
Yeah, I mean, he was a Big Six member, but yeah.
He was?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like I said.
But the thing was that they got presented as the big leaders of the generation, and they turned out they were the big leaders of the next generation. But it also, as you said, there were people outside of that scene that won the title, but they were also the most involved. Those six were the most involved people in the title scene.
Yeah, that's true. But
that is what they are presenting with this also.
I guess not dissimilar from a Four Pillars type of concept, right? Overall, like their version of the Four Pillars, where you had all of the, like you said, the original Big Six was like, Yoshino, Doi, Hulk, Shingo, Yamato, Tozawa, on there, and they've kind of set these up. Although there's other guys, and you could use it to build things. Again, it's not something that they were there in, I guess, again, kind of like the All Japan Four Pillars. They were listed as, they're known as that, but it's not like that was a big part of their story, so to speak. It was more like an unofficial title that
is also the whole thing about it is that it's going to create stories for all six of these people,
and everybody knows they're going to be
Yeah.
Yeah, like everyone already knows that these are going to be the like 6 of the main guys anyway. Like even if you
Yeah.
didn't call them that, overall, like that's just how things work. And though they've kind of just laid the groundwork for it. You know, like I said, Hulk had that long title reign. Shingo had a long title reign not that long after it.
Yep.
Overall, they've mixed and matched from there. You know, where you had like one-off upsets. Mochizuki obviously was like a
Ricochet.
memorable. Yeah, yeah. They foreigners as well, like Pac winning the title when he started RED, as well was a big foreigner title reign. You know, you could do a lot of different things, but all of these guys are talented and they've been pushed for the most part up to that level. So you would want
Yeah.
them to be listed as that guy because this is who the company is focused on, and now they're directly telling you that.
Yeah. That is pretty much it. Then we are going to talk about the tournaments. This is going to be a very short, brief tournament talk because they only have two. The first of all is the King of Gate, the year's big annual tournament. It changes between being a round robin tournament and a single elimination tournament depending on the year. As I said earlier when we talked about Kobe World, it used to be held like in the lead up to Kobe World from like May to June, but this year it will be held in July to August, right after Kobe World. Last year's winner was Yuki Yoshioka, and last year's tournament was a single elimination match. And it turned out he would win the Dreamgate title from Kai at Kobe World after winning the King of Gate.
Yeah, it was really well done, except things got messed up,
Yeah.
like because it's a Kobe World thing. But I mean, there's tons of cases of that throughout history of the Key of Gate winner coming in. Sometimes they lose. Like I said, I mentioned T Hawk earlier.
Yeah.
As well. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a tournament that, like, much you can say it's their G1, but it really isn't. It isn't. They don't really treat it as big as the G1 gets treated.
Well, there's been so many changes over the years for it.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
yeah,
yeah.
because it
Originally, yeah.
goes from being a single elimination tournament to being a round robin, and then going back to single elimination. It kind of like goes in between those.
And originally, they did a tournament in Toriyamon, like called El Numero Uno, like number one,
Yeah,
which was kind of like the predecessor to this. And then they did it, and basically, when they first started this, it was at the end of the year, like like the King of Gate. It was like, okay, who's coming in with the King of Gate, like in the year as the king of the company or whatever. Then they moved it around, and then they've done it in May and June pretty much every year until this year, and now they're doing it after Kobe World, and we'll have to see how it works out. But originally, like you said, it's been used. It's the catalyst to set up the main event, so it is kind of like their G1 in terms of it sets up their main event of the biggest show of the year. It just hasn't really been
yeah.
because of the way they've done it, and like you said, changing the round robin to the single elimination to whatever they're going to do, it hasn't quite had the same prestige as maybe it could, a G1 has had.
But it still has resulted in some pretty great moments and matches. Of course, it is always a good time to follow the tournament, and here of course is the thing I've been hinting at is that we see, of course, when they have the opening rounds and the finals, they are full shows on the Dragon Gate Network, and most of the rounds will be that there. But some they just don't have time to do it at all of those network shows because they only have like 5 to 6 network shows each month. So then they will have the YouTube digest on these like smaller house shows. They will upload the tournament matches that are held on those house shows, and that is a way to watch them. And it's always only 2 from that show, and that's they save kind of the smaller matches of a tournament. Like they did this with mostly this was a big deal because of the Race de Pereas, which I will talk about soon, being round robin. but they also did this with King of Gate last year. So you just have to be aware of. You're not going to be able to see every match of the King of Gate on the Dragon Gate network. You will see most of them, but you won't see all of them because you have to watch some of them on the Dragon Gate Japanese YouTube channel. Then there's the Reyes de Parejas, a tournament that got brought back this year and used to be held in Torimon, Japan back in the day. The last one was in 2003, so this was the 20 years since that tournament, and it was fought under round robin rules, as I said, and it went on from February to early March this year, and this year's winners was the Kobe World Dreamgate match. Yuki Yoshioka and Madoka Kikura. As I said, these two are the leaders of the company.
Yeah, I mean, the tag league, it has even like no prestige to it, pretty much.
Yeah, they brought it back now.
Yeah. But even before that, it's not like they never had. They used to have this thing called the Summer Adventure Tag League, which was basically this. It went away because of the pandemic, and then they called this Rey de Parejas. Like they brought it back to do the 20-year anniversary. But even then, the Summer Adventure Tag League had so many changes, like another stop and start type of deal. Yeah. You know, it would be round robin. It would be
the problem with that was that it was always almost going along with the King of Gate. It was always in the summer, and either after or before Kobe World.
Yeah, it would usually be after Kobe World. Yeah. Like they do King of Gate, then Kobe World did this. But the format changed so much that it never really took off. And the Rey de Parejas, it was okay. It wasn't a really super successful tournament either. Although
I thought it was a very engaging, for 2 very low months of Dragon Gate's year. This was very engaging to have, like, because they weren't doing much in February to March, and this made it worth having a Dragon Gate Network subscription at that time.
Yeah, but it wasn't like anything that, you know, it wasn't a legendary tournament. The final really showed out and did a great job, but I would say the tournament overall, a lot of people were kind of negative on it, and it wasn't. Yeah, like I
mean, go back in the archives of this show, and you will listen to me and Dylan talk about this tournament, where we covered every single match.
Yeah, and I wasn't as negative on it as some people because I liked. Here's my thought, and you know, Stardom did something very similar this year too with the Triangle Derby. It's like, okay, it's either this, or we just have matches with no stakes at all to them. You know, and this at least gave us stakes. So I actually wasn't as negative on it, but I'm saying for the company, draw-wise, the Japanese fans, it wasn't that successful ultimately. And I think that they did a great job of the Twin Gate titles themselves meaning something, but the tournament has never really been able to capture anyone's imagination, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because the old summer tag leagues were like really good, actually, if they put more prestige on it. But you know, we'll see what happens in the future. Maybe they'll go back to that next year.
I hope they bring back the Reyes de Parejas next year. I hope they, as you said, I hope they learned something from this year and they'll improve on that.
I think with them making the big show in January, I think there's really not a reason for that at this point. But you know, who knows what's gonna happen with King of Gate? Like their tournaments move around. That's the moral of the story of all of this. Whatever tournament we're talking about, Dragon Gate, it probably isn't that prestigious because they move it around and do stupid stuff with it, like intermittent times.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll talk about it. And there are always matches that are at least worth watching from those.
Well, the roster is so talented. Like we kind of brushed over the roster with the units, but like the roster itself is so amazing. Like anytime you get them in big matches, you're gonna get something great, pretty much. Yeah, if you're a fan of lucha libre style wrestling, pretty much.
For sure. But yeah, that has been this show. Any last things you want to say about Dragon Gate?
Yeah, we really scratched the surface on a lot of the history, but if you're a new fan, I think that really covers a great amount of stuff that you can look forward to. Just to talk about the wrestling style, because again, I've kind of teased this earlier in the show, but I do want to mention it. The roster now is a lot different than it would have been in the past, in that in the past it was all small guys, like what I said before. Now there's a much better mix of different styles. It's not all high flying like luchador type of people, or like high speed wrestlers. Now you have somebody like a Kai who wouldn't have fit in DG years ago. You have wild characters, which is a big part of their storylines. They tell a lot of stories. Somebody like a Shun Skywalker, his title reign this year wasn't filled with epic matches, but they told a great story at the end, and it led to an amazing win for Kakuta. Through, in my opinion, right? Jay has gone on record in some of his interviews. He wasn't as hot on it as maybe I was, but I liked it a lot. And I thought they did a great job. I think that the roster up and down is among the strongest it's been in terms of in-ring wrestling because you have so many great types of wrestlers. Yoshioka is not your traditional high-speed Dragon Gate wrestler. He is a guy that wrestles a main event style like you would see.
And he wrestles a lot like his idol, Hiroshi.
Yeah. I mean, he's the front finisher. Yeah. Using the finisher. But Kikuta, not a traditional Dragon Gate high-speed guy. You see guys come in and do different things up and down the card, and I think that's what makes the company itself so great. Is that there's a lot of heart in this promotion. What I said at the start of it being kind of a mom and pop operation where you have all the guys doing different things and pitching in different ways. Like we said, touring all over the country, not just being in the Tokyo area. It's a really tight knit group, and it comes through on the shows with a lot of the stuff they do.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of that high speed action. Don't get me wrong. If you look at the roster, there's a lot of guys, but even guys that do different things. Somebody like Jason Lee, he's a high speed guy, but he's not your traditional Dragon Gate style wrestler by any means. He has a very unique style to him, does a lot of great things. A lot of guys are like that. The company has a lot of comedic aspects as well to it, things that'll make you laugh. For a long time, they did a lot more of. They were also inspired by the Western world. And obviously Ultimo probably would have been a person to bring that in. But it used to be nobody would ever cut promos in the ring in Japanese wrestling shows. But DG would have promo battles and stuff. That they were the only company that was doing that for a long time. Now a lot of companies do that more, but they're still among the kings of the talk. Like in Japanese wrestling, Dragon Gate does that a lot. So you look at them as they're a very unique company. You can't get them quite anywhere else. They meld so many different things together, but in a good way that makes it very distinctly DG.
Yeah, for sure. And that is why I really love the company. It's so you can't find what they are doing anywhere else. It is so unique to Dragon Gate, and very few do it like them. Of course, some things won't work as well, but most of the time it will work and it will be very entertaining.
And it depends on what kind of fan you are. If you're if you want to see super technical wrestling, that's probably not going to be your jam. This is not going to be there for you. But I do think that they've gotten better stylistically, where you do have.
Yeah, it's also a company that's kind of you won't be as. So, this is kind of a weird tangent to make, but for the big matches. For the big matches, this is very important to say. This is for the big matches. A lot of the stuff won't hit you as hard if you don't know that much about the company. If you come in just expecting to watch a great match, you won't exactly feel the same way as the people that follow this company do. They bring back so much backstory to almost every match. Like Shun Skywalker and Madoka Kikura earlier this year, the current Dragon Gate match of the year, was so many callbacks to their 4-minute match 2 years prior when Kikura got injured, that if you had not seen that match, you would not get the references that they were making during that. You would not get why Shun Skywalker targeted the shoulder as much as he did, and why he made fun of Kikura's shoulder a lot, and why he acted very you won't understand it, is what I'm saying. It's kind of a promotion that you kind of have to get yourself invested into to truly enjoy it. It's not a friendly promotion to people parachuting in. That is not a knock on people that come into a promotion just to watch some great matches. I understand that. I do that for a lot of companies, but Dragon Gate is a promotion that I understand why you wouldn't quite understand why the Dragon Gate fans are hyping up a match if you are just seeing it for the first time.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The one you mentioned with Kikuta and Shun is probably like, among the best examples of that.
Yeah,
I remember again on my other show, I talked to Striga about it. He was like, "Yeah, it was good and all, but it wasn't as good as maybe other people thought it was. If you're really into the story, that's a big part of it. Even in Yoshioka's title reign, again, I think a lot of people maybe were adding things to it, like the Yamato match. That had a lot of implications that you could add on to it if you're emotionally invested, like a passing of the torch type of deal. Which
why it's one of my favorite matches of last year, but yeah.
yeah, and it didn't really play out that way. Like they switched to Kakuta pretty fast, but it's okay. Like I said, it's okay. It's still a good match as it is. Eita's another one. It's like that really was his last hurrah, like in the company, like as a main event talent, like Eita versus Yoshioka overall. But there's still some great matches. Like I think Yoshioka versus Mochizuki, anybody could enjoy. Like that type of match.
For sure.
I think a lot of the Twin Gate matches, like anybody can enjoy, like those type of matches. It really just depends on who the champion is, because like if it's also, a heel champion, yeah, that's gonna change things. I would say.
Yeah, Shun Skywalker. See, Shun Skywalker's heel character gets a lot of like flack because of that very much thing that he calls back a lot to it before he was a heel. He calls back a lot to the Masquerade matches he used to have, and
right.
And if you didn't if you have no idea what Masquerade is, and you just see Shun Skywalker and this is the heel, you will not quite get those references. Like it may not seem like a big deal, but Shun Skywalker going to the top rope and doing a moonsault is a big deal. That is a big deal, because it's he rarely does it ever since he has turned heel. So when he does it, and it will really pop the people that have seen most of his matches since he turned heel, because he hasn't done it at all. And that's the thing, is that a lot of these people you have to kind of invest into, and you kind of have to invest time into learning their backstory. And that is a thing I really like about Dragon Gate, because it rewards me as a viewer. But I understand
there's a lot of lore to go through when you look at the company. Like a lot of these guys have been in here for a long time. Like like half of these guys we mentioned were guys who were around 15 years ago and things like that, doing big things. Then there's a newer generation, obviously, like they're building things around with this big six and everything. And they all have their own lore, so to speak, and trials and tribulations. Shun was a champion of Masquerade. There was multiple injuries that happened in his matches. Like Masquerade didn't really work, so they turned him heel. Like after a year, they broke up the group. Benkei they built him up for years to be the champion, and he finally won the title. And then they took it away at the end of the year, shockingly, to set up another story. So there's trials and tribulations with a lot of these guys too. That's a part of their journey that you helps explain a lot of the current characters' motivations if you look at their backstories, so to speak.
Yeah, and that is my point in all this. That is what I really love about Dragon Gate. It rewards me as a long-time viewer of the company, like most of the time. Most of the time, I get so rewarded for investing all my time into this company, and it's no greater feeling that when Kikuta won the title earlier this year, the 2 years of build-up that it had felt so rewarding. And
that one was probably one of the easier ones to get. It's like, hey, he was injured, now he's back. Same date of his injury, same event as his injury, same guy who was injured against for the same title.
For the same title. Yeah,
Yeah, so it was very easy to understand. Like that one was, but there is other stuff that
yeah,
and I think a lot of it is emotional investment as well. If you
like,
can, yeah,
and also like Jason Lee, the whole who gets rights to Jason Lee storyline they did last year,
yeah,
all of that. It is a very story based promotion, a very storyline like driven promotion, and it rewards you if you invest into it. It really rewards you for it.
and I like that because, like I said, a lot of companies, it's just I don't want to say they ignore their history, but it's not as prominent as it is in I would say of all the companies, their history is by far the most important to Dragon Gate
Yeah,
of any mainstream promotion for sure. It's not like you can't have callbacks and stuff to
yeah,
things, and obviously, maybe if it's a major deal like Okada and Tanahashi, like they always kind of go to that. Um, but in terms of stuff up and down the card and the company as a whole, no other company has the same level of calling back to their history that Dragon Gate does. If you can bring up the stuff that I'm bringing up from 15 years ago, is still like it's still relevant even today. In a lot of ways, or it can be if they want to make it that way. Obviously, some stuff people have left or retired or things like that. I remember even the anniversary of Kobe World, uh, where they had the one and only Bravegate versus Dreamgate title match where Doi beat Shima. That was 2009,
yeah.
like Kobe World. Uh, that was like a spectacular moment. Like it jump started a whole ace run for Doi. You see stuff like the Ultimate Dragon return, like Big Show, like Ben K finally dethroned Pac, who was like the champion there and had a great run, a great heel run in RED. Shingo's title reign to me, again, he's left now, but that reign was so satisfying to watch and go through. Yoshioka's title reign last year, I still say is very satisfying
Yeah,
when you look up and down his title reign, and
the
we'll see what happens going
and
forward.
there's even smaller things in that where the current Bravegate champion Jason Lee uses a move that he calls the Maximum Driver, which is a shout out to the unit he first joined when he came into Dragon Gate, a unit that has been dead for 5 years now.
Yeah, it was like a totally minor unit in the grand
Yeah,
scheme of things. Like,
but
was not a main event group, but he still uses it. Yeah, that's another great point, and that's another thing they do too, where you'll see Yoshino retiring, passing his moves down. Like
yeah,
he'll pick a move for somebody to use, and he'll point to him, and then there'll be another guy he gives another move. We've seen that multiple times in DG as well. So that's
and
a
that's
that's
the
another
same
really good
thing.
point.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
such
yeah,
a
KNS as well. Yeah, completely.
again calling back to your history. It's so rewarding for the fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, finally, what is a match that you recommend for new viewers of Dragon Gate to watch? If they've never seen Dragon Gate, what is the one match you want to watch? Want to recommend them?
One singular match. That's really tough because there's a lot of great options, And like I said, a lot of these guys have been around for years, but I'll keep one pretty recent, and I'll keep one that is with my guy. My favorite wrestler in Dragon Gate is Jason Lee, so I
Yeah,
will pick one of his matches to go with. And if you watched it, you know what I'm talking about for sure, because it was on last year's Kobe World, and it was his Kung Fu Masters teammate, Jason Lee and Jackie Funky Kame versus Diamante and Shun Skywalker for the Open the Twin Gate titles, which to me was like, and the thing is, that's another one where I don't know if it'll hit the same if you just watch it in a vacuum, because at the time it was like, this show was a huge disappointment for reasons we mentioned. The crowd was dead for most of it. The matches weren't hitting, and the Dragon Gate had a great year, but they did this Menorah stuff, and it tanked the show pretty much.
and this was also after a very sad heel Del Santo and Ultimo Dragon stuff, and
Yeah,
it was very dumb. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, very bad show. And then, but
the
they saved it the best they could.
these two teams came out there and had the best tag team match of all of 2022. One of probably the best Open the Twin Gate title match in years. it ended up being one of my favorite matches of the year, and I can actually attest that this match is very friendly for new viewers because I was watching it with my cousin who's like 10, and he had no idea what Dragon Gate was. He was just sitting there watching the show with me, and when he saw this match, he was just amazed. So truly one of the best babyface performances ever by Jackie Funky Kame and Jason Lee, and it's truly a must-watch match. I will also recommend a recent one. I like recommending recent wrestling because then you will know the people currently wrestling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I will recommend a match that you mentioned earlier, but it was last year the most accessible title match of Yuki Yoshioka's title reign versus his trainer Masaki Mochizuki in Korakuen Hall. Probably the hottest Korakuen Hall crowd for Dragon Gate last year. A match that just featured so many great spots and was probably the best like in-ring worked Yuki Yoshioka match in that reign. I prefer the Yamato match because I was very much into that match, but this match as a just wrestling match is so spectacular. That's huge. It's a great recommend. The whole Yuki Yoshioka reign is actually a great recommend. But
if you watch all the matches, I think you gain something from them. But that to me was the best one.
The only backstory you need to know about this is Masaki Mochizuki was Yuki Yoshioka's trainer. This was him coming out and trying to put the young guy down. And yeah, that's the story. Go watch it. 26 minutes in Korakuen Hall. Really great match.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, watch all of those matches with Yoshioka's title reign. Watch all the Twin Gate matches on Kobe Worlds if you can find them, because there's been historically some great ones.
Yeah.
I remember the Kai and Yamato versus Big R and Eita match from a few years ago. Yeah. That was before the pandemic. That was a fantastic match. Kai has been a part of some underrated tag teams in general in DG, but there was
Tosawa and Takagi versus Eita and T-Hawk match from 2014.
That was a great match.
Fantastic Twin Gates Kobe World match.
Yeah, Big R and Yamato and BB Hulk and Benkei. That was another great Kobe World Tag title match or Twin Gate title match. Man, I'm telling you, all the Twin Gates at Kobe World is where you got to go. If you want great tag team wrestling, that's where you look right away.
Another really great open the Dream Gate title defense was AEW's Pac defending it against Pac against Casey in 2019. That is a match that is synonymous with my fandom for Casey. You see one of the best babyface performances from Casey in Defeat, and Pac just being the most dominant heel foreign champ. And great match from 2019 that it gets very underrated by people.
Yeah, absolutely. Pac was a great champion.
The Dragon Gate has a whole library of matches to watch, and
yeah, absolutely.
Most of them are on the Dragon Gate network, so it's definitely worth it to just sit down and look through it and find what you want and look up some legendary matches. But yeah, that has been this guide. I hope you really feel informed about Dragon Gate after listening to this. Of course, if you know about Dragon Gate and listen to this, you will probably have corrected us multiple times and been really mad at us and been screaming at us, or
not me. Maybe you, but not me.
But I hope even veteran Dragon Gate fans find this entertaining, and I hope new viewers listen to this and get back to us if they have any questions, and if they want us to expand on something, just DM me on Twitter at SondreBjorn. I will answer at SondreBjorn. I will answer that. And yeah, any final things you want to say?
Is that what the cross through the O means? You got to say like Bjorn?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, sorry, I didn't mean to mispronounce your name before. I got to respect the cross, the O through the O. Yeah, I mean, that to me is one of the most fun parts. I would highly recommend anybody can message me too at Viva_0. If you got anything to say to me or want me to expand upon anything, want to get some recommendations for a Dragon Gate in any kind of wrestling, really. But I will talk to you about it. I've been watching it for so many years. Any kind of historical context or things like that. I feel like we really scratched the surface on the history. There's a lot like in the historical context.
If
But
we were going to talk about the full history, it would take a long time. So
yeah, exactly. Like there's actually a lot that happened in between. But we did our best here today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And like he said, message us. Let us know what you think. Be nice. Hopefully, I want to be nice to everybody. So let's everybody be nice to everybody else as well. But most importantly, check it out. Check out DG. Have some fun. I think there's a lot to get into and a lot of good reasons to be a DG fan at this point in time, especially. I mean, there's no better time really in any company than to watch it right before the biggest show of the year, which we just so happen to be coming up on as we go on there. So it's a great time, and thank you guys very much for listening. Veteran fan, new fan, somebody who doesn't even know what wrestling is. If you're like, hey, what's this wrestling thing that these guys are talking about? No matter what person you are, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Yeah, but yeah, I of course come back to this show if this was your first time listening to the Dramatic Dream Dragons. We cover DDT and Dragon Gate every week. We will bring you the news about each company, and we will give our reviews and previews about both companies. And yeah, until next time, as always, be ready, wake up, and go.